They could have 3 losses by now.
I don't know about that.
They are not that good.
Put Florida State in there, I would say yes to that, what you just said.
Punt return by Caleb Downs. And he finds a seam. He makes the punter look silly. Caleb Downs, show him what you got. Touchdown, Bama.
5-minute drive now for UTEP. And they will keep it on the ground. Awad just gets pile-driven by Stutzman.
Really haven't even tried from the shotgun.
That throw's intercepted. Pierce down the sideline. Touchdown.
Claiborne, the sophomore, has 1 score so far this season. Griffiths will buy a little bit of time. Falling down, lost the football. Play is still live. And recovered by the Monarchs. Lamarian James will take it the other way for the ODU touchdown.
Welcome to Devy IDP Grind. I am at Hollywood Titan. I'm joined by my co-host Justice. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm just over here setting my lineups for tonight, I guess. Going through.
Yeah.
It's been a busy day, and I just haven't had a chance to do it today, and so I'm just trying to go through and see who I have that's between App State and South Alabama, and get that straight before that game starts in about an hour.
Yeah, you got 1 hour to get that done. So,
absolutely.
South Alabama is at App State, and App State is favored by 7, and the over/under is 62.5. If you happen to care about those things.
Yeah, the big thing I think is for me. I don't have a lot of App State guys. I have some Caden Robinson, but and some Gio Lopez, but. The bigger thing is you have to set your subs. Like, you know, if you're in leagues that have the auto subs.
Right.
So even if I don't have those guys, I got to set my lineups because you got to set the auto sub before that game starts tonight.
I don't think I play in any leagues that has the auto subs that I know of.
I play in probably like 5, and that's probably like my biggest gripe is like you have to set them before the first game. So like when Mac plays on Tuesday nights, you got to have it set on Tuesday or else you're screwed. Well, you're not screwed. You just can't have it. And so, yeah, so like right now I'm setting a lineup. I have no App State or South Alabama players on this team, but I got to set the lineup because I got to be able to set my subs. So it sucks. That part sucks.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because that made me go look. And I do have a player. I got Joey Aguilar going tonight. Defensively, not in this league, I don't have anybody. I'm glad you said something because I would have had to went and look. I wouldn't have never looked. I set them today, but I didn't forgot. So I think that's really the only one that I have, and I had to set it in our listener league because I needed a quarterback. So anyway, we got the one game tonight, South Alabama at App State. You've got 3 games tomorrow night, Stanford at Syracuse, 24th ranked Illinois at number 22 Nebraska. Choppy will be our buddy Choppy will be happy about that. Looks like Nebraska's finally starting to turn the corner with Raiola.
Yeah.
A few more, and it looks like they might be back to the winning ways of the 90s. And then you got San Jose State at Washington State late tomorrow night. A little bit better schedule overall this week. Some of the teams that were on a bye are back in action, but they're playing some inferior competition like Ohio State. They've got Marshall. Clemson's at home against NC State. You've got Iowa State at home against Arkansas State. Penn State against Kent State. There is a 3:30 matchup, 11th ranked USC versus at number 18 Michigan, which could be pretty good. That might be a pretty good game. I was looking to see if there was another top 25 matchup worth watching. Oh yeah, 7:30. There's this little thing out in Norman, Oklahoma. The Sooners are at home, and they just got this little bitty old team from Tennessee coming in there who's ranked number 6. So, yeah, that's going to be fun. I can't wait to watch that. I'll have to stay off of social media because I will be pretty inebriated and probably pretty obnoxious by the time that game rolls around. So,
not you, Hollywood, not you, buddy.
No, not me. I will be drinking apple juice and saying my prayers. But yeah, I think that's the Nebraska game and the Tennessee game is the only 2 top 25 matchups that I – oh, and the USC Michigan. So that's the only 3 top 25 matchups this week. And they've got them spaced out, so you can kind of watch them all 3. If you're into the late games, 13th ranked Kansas State at BYU might be fun too. That's at 10:30. So
yeah, that should be a good one. I mean, the one I'm probably most excited for is the one tonight, right? I mean,
yeah.
Speaking of, I don't know if you noticed like the new hat, but just came in the mail today. Nice.
I like it.
Gotta rep the G5. So yeah,
that's
they
sweet.
just got UPS man dropped them off around lunchtime today. That was pretty cool.
Oh wow, that is cool. Yeah, be sure to check out the G5 Hive at G5 Hive, and you can check us out at Devy IDP Ground. But yeah, it's cool looking swag, man. I like it. Fitted or snapback?
No, it's a fitted. It's fitted, man.
Oh, really?
It's a flex fit. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of I like. Yeah. While I got your attention, Jason Henderson didn't play again last week.
Nope.
And I know he wasn't
dressed.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it last week. Any updates? Do they think he's getting closer to playing, or mum's the word?
No. Well, the problem is Coach Ricky Ryan doesn't answer questions like that about injuries. He's not going to answer it. He's not going to answer any of those kind of questions. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, do I think he's not going to play this week. It's ODU's on a bye. So
right.
So that's the easy answer. But whether he plays in the future, I don't know. It was kind of early for him to kind of come back from that injury. He injured that knee in, I don't know, like game 10 of the season. And like they've never officially said what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a torn ACL. So right. Like it was kind of, I always thought it was kind of early for him to be coming back anyway, right? So I don't know. I look for him maybe maybe conference play. So that's 3 weeks from now. They don't play another home game. Week
that's what, week 6 or 7?
5. It's gonna be week. No, we're coming up on week 4. Then they play Bowling Green in week 5, so week 6. That's just a total guess on my part. You know,
right.
I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like if it goes too long, though, I guess it depends on what what he wants to do. And I know we talked about this last week, but it feels like if he goes too much longer into this season, that he might just want to shut it down and take that red shirt for next year. I mean,
yeah,
just kind of what I would think.
Absolutely, that's certainly a possibility. Whether he's already played one game this year, right? He played in the South Carolina game,
Right?
So he kind of burned that there. But yeah, I mean, I think that definitely enters the thought process, right? I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. To me, it really kind of depends on like how important some of these records are to him, right? Because like
Right.
if he wants to break the record for tackle record, he's gonna have to play. And so I don't really know, like, if that's like something like that's super important to him, or something, that he's not just kind of ancillary. I'm not sure. Like, what's more important, like getting healthy and then breaking the record, going to the NFL? I don't really know, right? I mean, I'm not, kind of
Right.
speculation, I guess, but those are the kind of things I guess he's going to have to weigh to see if that's, if he wants to, what he wants to do, and I don't know, like I said, the records might not be any part of his consideration at all, right? Those are great, but at the end of the day, what is that, right? So I don't know.
Well,
a lot of factors.
Even if you take the record part out of it, excuse me. Even if you take the record part out of it, and he does shut it down for the rest of the year and wants to get ready for the draft, we've talked about his draft stock quite a bit, but I feel he would be better served to come back another year. Not just for the records. Like I said, you could throw those aside, but just come back and put a full, healthy year on tape his last year. I feel like would help his draft stock a lot more than just, we saw it once before with Nick Bosa when he got, the abdominal injury when he was at Ohio State, and he just shut it down for like the last, half, 3/4 of the year, and he started getting ready for the draft, which was fine for him. But right. I don't know that Jason Henderson can pull that off, if that makes sense. I would think he would want a full season of healthy tape, right? But to show him that you're healthy. I mean, that's just my thinking. But
no.
And if he does that, then the records would probably come with it. But
no, I would agree with you.
But you did say something last week that has stuck with me and got me thinking. If that's the case, and he does come back here, and you mentioned this, what do you think the odds are that he transfers?
Well, I think that kind of depends on how the rest of the year plays out. Let's say he comes back, he proves he's healthy, he plays the final 3 games of the year, and he's putting up 20 tackles a game. Got to think that, I don't know, 50-50 at that point.
Right.
I mean, I'd like to think he would stick it out, but folks throw around crazy money, so I don't. Crazy things can happen when you're throwing around crazy amounts of money. But I really think for that to be an option, he has to come back at some point in the season, and maybe it'd have to be the last 3 games, right? Because he can't play more than 3 more, right. And he's got to prove it on the field. Right. If he does that, I can definitely see it happen. If that doesn't happen, then I don't know.
Yeah, it's just kind of my thought. If he's truly wants to go to the NFL, if that's what his dream is, and that usually players at this level, that's what you're shooting for, then maybe shut it down this year. See where you're at the end of the year. If you can come back, play the last 2 or 3 games, then come and use your red shirt or medicals, whatever, for next year, put a full season on tape, and then he's going to get noticed at Old Dominion. But I guess my thought was, does he pull a Jabril Cox and transfer, where he transferred from North Dakota State to LSU to try to get a little more recognition? Does Jason Henderson do that as well? Does he try to transfer to an SEC or an ACC school or something like that? But I don't know. It's a long time till then, I guess.
Yeah, certainly possible. I think a lot depends on how the rest of this year plays out. Obviously, like he can only play 3 more games if he's going to come back to college next year. So that's number one. Number two, he has to play He has to show he's 100% in those games, I think, to even kind of garner an offer to go to a Power 4 school and get something, get something going on that in that regard. So I don't know. We'll kind of see how it plays out. I do think that when he comes back, it's going to be when he's 100%. So I don't think they're going to push him. I mean, the defense is not the problem with Old Dominion.
Right.
It is not the defense. The defense has played outstanding, even without him, and it's all on the offense. And when you only have 50 yards passing in a game, you're not going to win too many games.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. And my dog's barking. Thank you. Speaking of we are defense, but speaking of defense here, our week 3 defensive players of the week. Yours was defensive end Antoine Powell-Ryland for Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And I had defensive lineman R. Mason Thomas of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I got to watch Antoine Powell do all his damage against Old Dominion. But man, I mean, he feasted, buddy. He had 7 tackles, 6 solo tackles, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery. He was on point, man, against Old Dominion. And he's had a really slow start to the season. Certainly I didn't expect numbers like that from him every single week, but I expected better than he's done. So, hopefully Old Dominion was a get right game for him, and he'll come out again against Rutgers and do something similar. But he's someone I've been kind of high on, I guess, since he transferred to Tech from Florida. I added him on a lot of teams a year ago, and someone I think has an NFL future.
Right. Yeah, I think his NFL value is starting to go up a little bit, and if he puts together a really good season, you're going to see him be one of the sneakier names, I think, come draft process time. Like I said, I picked R. Mason Thomas. Was doing a little scouting, if you will, before the big game this week, and R. Mason Thomas had quite the showing for Oklahoma. 3 tackles, all 3 were solos, all 3 were TFLs, all 3 were sacks. So he was their pass rush specialist for them last week. And they're going to need him to be big again this week against Tennessee if they have a chance to win. So that's our week 3 defensive players of the week. Check your waiver wire. Maybe they're out there. If they can help your team, pick them up. You never know. Help us grow, right? Wherever you listen to podcasts, we're everywhere. Our follower count is starting to grow now. Twitter's up to 566. Discord's growing to 58. And YouTube's at 30. Go to YouTube, subscribe, rate, and review. Same thing with the podcast. G5 Hive too. Do the same thing for those guys. Help them out. The more y'all follow, the more y'all share and clicks and likes, the more it helps us grow and gives us the ability to do different things. So definitely go check out the Discord. There's all kinds of talk there from high school all the way to the NFL. We've got chats for other sports and wrestling and all that. So go check that out. The link is in our bio. If not, yell at one of us. Me and Justice can shoot you the link to it without any trouble. So I did a little better this week as far as my fantasy teams. I started out pretty rough. Three leagues with the IDP in it. I think I was 0-2 in all three of them. Maybe one of them was 1-1, but I was 2-1 on the week this week, so that helps even it back out a little bit. It's been a rough start to the season for me.
It's been a rough start for NFL for me. College, not so bad. I'm doing pretty well on the college side of things, which is pretty typical for me. I don't know. I don't love the NFL. I don't pay attention as much as I ever used to, and even in this year, I say I even paid less attention. Like I still have not watched a full NFL game. I didn't watch any preseason games. I've watched some bits and pieces of some actual games, but I have not watched a full NFL game yet. It just I don't know. It doesn't do it for me, man, and my fantasy teams suffer because of it, right? Because I'm not watching preseason. I don't know that hey, this guy is popping off and he's a free agent. And I don't pick him up because I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
I just don't pay attention. And so that's I'm behind the 8 ball on the NFL for sure. And then my team in our listener league, like I only have like one running back really. That's Isaiah Pacheco, who I traded Jordan Love to get last year from you, and then he goes and like breaks his leg, I guess. And so like I don't have a freaking running back.
Well, Jordan Love's hurt too, so that was both bad luck for us.
Yeah, I mean it's a one quarterback league, and I owned Patrick Mahomes, so I'm never going to start Jordan Love.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm 2-1 in fantasy football legends ran by Chop. I am 0-3 in the Dig League. Ooh, that's horrible. And then in the Campus to Canton League, where did it go here? I am, if this thing will refresh real quick, I'm 0-3 there too. So my college side has been horrible, absolutely horrible. I'm doing a little better on the NFL side, but now one good thing is Quinn Ewers is out, so I've got Arch Manning in 2 leagues, so he's starting for me this week. So hopefully he can. Him and Nico can help me route the ship in a couple of leagues.
Yeah, I'm in our listener league. I'm 3-0 and number 1 in points. I am not in Campus to Canton League anymore. In another league with IDP, I am 3-0 and I am number 1 in points. And then my last league with IDP, I am 3-0, but number 3 in points. Oh, and I forgot about Legends. Ooh. I am 2-0, and I am, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, number 4 in points.
Nice.
So, doing well in the college side. And NFL, like a lot of my NFL teams are 0-2. So I think in our listener league I'm 1-1, but most of my, yeah. I mean, there's a league that I won the championship on the NFL side last year, and I'm 0-2 in that league. So NFL is just a fickle beast.
Crazy how it changes so fast.
NFL, especially, man. It's just, I don't know. Like, I have Christian McCaffrey in that league, and of course, he was on a tear at the end of last year. So that helped lead me to the championship, and he hasn't played at all this year. So that's hurting me big time.
Yeah. I know Tennessee put out their first official injury report yesterday. It came out yesterday. So, that was interesting to see because they're talking about it on the radio shows and stuff like that. But we talked about this last week too. I think that these injury reports that these conferences are going to start doing, I think everybody's going to file in line. And I think it's going to be really helpful for the fantasy and gambling communities, right? Because that's really where this is kind of originated from. But just for the fantasy perspective, just maybe they're not all the way there, but just to have that injury report that says, okay, so and so's banged up, at least you've got an alert to kind of watch for something, as to where in the past you're just kind of throwing darts in a way, unless you just sit for hours and hours and watch TV and scour the internet and everything else. So I think these injury reports will help quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, the SEC kind of leads the way because theirs come out the earliest. Theirs come out, I think, Thursday, right? Everyone else is like a couple hours before game time. But you got the MAC, the SEC, and Big Ten.
Yes.
I can't wait for the day for all conferences to have to put them out.
I think it'll get there. It may take us a little bit, but I think we'll eventually get there. Didn't really have news and notes for today, so I don't know if you have your league scoring to run through. If you want to run, I know we're kind of crunched for time today, but
I do.
Yeah.
I was trying to think if I have heard of any defensive player news the last week, and I can't really.
I was sitting here looking, and I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen any like major injuries or anything along those lines. So in our listener league, in week 3, the top defensive end, my player of the week, Antoine Powell, with 35 points. The top D tackle was Michael Moore, UAB, with 20 points. The top linebacker was Tyler Grubbs, Hollywood favorite, 35.4 points. The top cornerback was the human cheat code, Travis Hunter. He was the top player overall with 55.6 points. If you want to throw out Travis Hunter, the top cornerback would be Deshaun Pace at Central Florida with 20 points. And the top safety was Nick Imanowore, South Carolina, with 25 points. If we look at the top players not owned, again, this is only week 3. The top cornerback, Marquise Cooper, Buffalo, 51.5 points. The top defensive end, Boubacar Traore, Notre Dame, 33.8 points. The top defensive tackle, let's down the list here a little ways. Down the list a long ways. Oh, man. Tommy, and I only want to butcher his, Aking Bestole, Maryland, 14 points. The top linebacker, Langston Hardy, Connecticut, 34.8 points. For some reason, I got a linebacker here from Gardner-Webb. There's a linebacker from Gardner-Webb had 44 points this week, Trevor Moffitt. But that's FCS. And the top safety, Zamarian Gordon, Coastal Carolina, 27.8 points. So those kind of were the top guys. Another guy that's a free agent who had a big week last week is linebacker Kevin Swint, Georgia State. He was my defensive player of the week for G5 Hive. Had a huge game in their win over Vanderbilt. They had like 6 tackles, 2 sacks, a couple pass defenses. But yeah, big game for Kevin Swint in getting that win over Vanderbilt. Like, that shocked me. Like, I'm here for it. You know, I'm here for that G5 win. But
right,
but by my estimation, Vanderbilt's better than a normal Vanderbilt, right? They're still not like top of the SEC or anything like that, but I think they're better than what you normally expect for Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Georgia State had so much turnover. They lost their coach left in the middle of spring practice, right? They get a new coach. They lost so many players, and so my expectations for Georgia State weren't super high this year, and so to see them get a win at Vanderbilt, super. Well, it wasn't. I don't think it was at Vanderbilt. I think it was at home, but still getting a win over Vanderbilt, super impressive. Super impressive. I feel like. So shout out to Georgia State, man. There was a lot of upsets last week in terms of G5 over P4. It had 4 of them. That Toledo, Mississippi State, like the fact that Toledo won doesn't shock me. Like I thought Toledo had a chance to win the game, but they freaking like beat the mess out of Mississippi State. It's like 41-17. That shocked me.
There was some weird games last week for sure.
I feel like this year, last year we had Caleb Downs, right? He was just a monster. Speaking of Caleb Downs, I don't like he is not this from a fantasy production standpoint, he is not the same player.
Correct.
That he was at Alabama. He's not putting up the same numbers he was at Alabama. But
I think teams are being a lot more careful in avoiding him too.
Could be. I mean, but he put up a lot of tackles for Alabama, and he's not putting up the same amount of tackles there for Ohio State. But the thing what I was going to say is, I feel like last year it was kind of a bumper crop for freshmen, right? Like a lot of freshmen were making noise, and we really haven't seen that this year. You had Caleb Downs, you had Reuben Bain, the Suntarine Perkins. He's another one that's been super quiet this year, right? Is Perkins.
Yep.
Haven't really seen much out of him. I guess Sammy Brown's probably like the closest, but I don't think like he hasn't done anything kind of crazy, has he, this year?
No, and he's not really getting to start because they've got Woodaz and Carter.
Well, they got Woodaz and Carter. Right? He's not going to start over those guys.
Right. So I think really next year is where you're going to see him take off because Carter will be going to the NFL, and Woodaz, if he has a really good season, I wouldn't be shocked to see him go too.
Yeah. I absolutely think both of those guys are gonna be in the NFL. Speaking of which, one thing, I don't know what league it was, but somebody in a league I'm in dropped Woodaz, and I snatched him up.
Yeah, you should.
Like I understand, like I understand, like he's probably not someone you want to start from a college standpoint on a weekly basis, but the dude's going to be in the NFL, and so I don't know. Like I always, it was something I wanted to get your opinion on. It's something I struggle with in my own fantasy teams is when to cut bait, right? When do you cut bait?
Oh.
Like you hold on too long, right? Like I feel like I was last year I had Trevor Williams. He was a beast. So this year I was like, oh, the man's gonna be Kavai Gaither. And he is not he's not Trevor Williams. And so like I'm looking around to cut him last night, and I'm like, well, I probably waited too long. Right now all the top free agent linebackers are gone. I just waited too long.
Well, and we've talked about this very particular player, and it's funny that this is going to be the answer because I was just looking at this actually for shits and giggles, but he actually had a good game. When to cut bait is for me is super hard, and I think the first thing that comes to my mind
because if you're not aggressive, you miss out on the top available guys.
Correct. But to me, if I'm holding, and I'm going to go back to Corey Foreman, right? I think the first thing for me is how much do I have invested in that player? And Foreman, that's one of Brock's leagues. As you know, he likes to do the auctions. So it was my first time doing it, but I was also doing research for Foreman. I wanted to see what it was going to take to get him because I really didn't want to pay the $275 that I paid to get him. I really didn't. I was just curious. At the time, I really liked him and I was willing to pay, but $275, that's just insane. So having that much invested in him, that's crazy to just cut him right away, right? Him being a freshman, you can kind of stash him and put him wherever. Then year 2 comes around, he's not seeing the field. He's eventually transferred now to Fresno State because he was at USC. He never got on the field hardly, and when he did, he wasn't an impact. And I think for me, I would have cut him a lot sooner had I not had that much invested in him. If it had been like $50, I would have probably cut him long ago. But because I had so much tied up in him, I felt I had to hold on to him. But this past week, he had 2 tackles, both were solos, both were TFLs, and both were sacks, and he had a pass deflection. That's the type of game that we've been looking for from him for 3 years, right? And I've moved him completely out of my rankings. He's out of my top 400 Devy rankings. And here we are in year 3 or whatever it is, and he's finally had a decent game. On the other side, if you don't have much tied up in him, and I'll use this as an example, like Cleveland Farrell, who went to the Raiders, 4th overall pick or whatever it was. First of all, I thought that was way too high for him to be drafted in the NFL, but I did like the fit. I liked him being with Gruden and all that, but I had him in a few places, and this was when me and Dan was doing IDP Nation. It just wasn't there from a week-to-week basis. It just wasn't there, and I think there was one stretch he was like 19 games in a row without a sack, and he was only getting like maybe 1 or 2 tackles. And I was telling people then, you got to cut bait. You can't waste a roster spot on a player that's not helping you, right? Like in the NFL, you've got a taxi squad. So if you're willing to wait on somebody, you can kind of bury somebody on a taxi squad and it not affect your main roster. In Campus to Canton, we don't really have that luxury. You know, if you're picking up a young guy, then you really need to believe in him and to be willing to sit on him and waste that roster spot. And I think that's what hurt me with Corey Foreman, right? It wasn't that I really was believing in him at the time. It's just I had so much invested that I couldn't really cut ties to pick up somebody else. Now, here we are now. If I've got Corey Foreman, I'm cutting his ass without any reservation, right? I'm cutting him. And I think it's the same with overall for me. I think it's the same. If I'm not really tied to a player, and that's why I hate having Tennessee Vol players, right? Because I get like Boo Carter. I've got him on a lot of my teams, but I didn't spend a ton on him. So if he starts to shit the bed on me this year, it's easy for me to get out from under him, right? It's easy for me to let him go and pick somebody up. So also in college, I don't think you don't have as many games as to
you don't know
the NFL where you can wait, you know, where the NFL you've got 17 games.
Yeah.
And you're playing what, 13, 14 week seasons, maybe 15 in some special leagues. Then you start your playoffs. Well, hell, by the time the NFL fantasy playoffs start, college is almost done. So I think that's a factor too. Is that kind of how you think, or is there a certain player you were thinking about, or?
Well, like I said, Kavine Gaither was like the main one. Like, because last night I was like, man, like he's playing well for Sam Houston, but he ain't putting up Trevor Williams numbers. And so I was like, you know, I really need to find a more productive, because like he probably doesn't have any NFL, right? He's not going to NFL, or
Right.
It's not likely, right? And so to me, like, then you got to be putting up crazy numbers for college. And so I was like, I need to replace him. And you know, I own him in a couple leagues, and yeah, it just, I don't know, like it just, I waited too long is what happened. You know, I just waited too long.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that, and like I said, that's why I try not to have too many of my favorite players, because I know if they're not performing, then you're gonna have to make those tough decisions and cut them. Yeah, and then like you said, he's probably not NFL. He's not trending towards the NFL right now, right? So
Right. I don't know his size. Like Trevor Williams, like he was just too small to play NFL. But he had
yeah, I'm trying to.
elite production for college.
Yeah, I mean, I think players like that, if you think they're not, Kavion Gaither is listed by their website at 6'2", 215.
So I mean, that's too skinny. That's too thin to play linebacker in the NFL.
And just a tad short, because they usually want you in that 6'2" up range, and they usually want you 225, 230. So yeah.
And then I guess the other end of that spectrum is like another player on my roster, Bear Alexander, right? Like he ain't doing any. I can't start him because he isn't doing anything. But he's so talented. Like you're holding on to a guy like that for the NFL potential, And then I go look at my NFL team, and I'm like, man, I'm pretty set at D tackle. What do I do with the Bear Alexander? I just keep holding him, hoping he makes it to the NFL. I don't know. Like, obviously, that person that dropped Wade Wooders was in the same predicament. Who I don't remember what league that was, but like they were faced the same thing. They're like, hey, am I going to hold this guy based on his NFL only potential? That's
and I think where we get really caught is you were talking about Bear Alexander, and I was talking about Corey Foreman. What really gets us with those type of players is when we see a player like Peter Woods, right? One of the best players in his class. He goes to Clemson, a perfect fit. He's down there in year 2, and he's already on the field starting for them. He's putting up fantasy numbers, and we think, man, every time we see somebody, Sammy Brown, we think he's going to be the next one, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where we get caught up with it.
And those are the guys I struggle with the most. The guys that are like NFL only, because like you're wasting a roster spot for how many years hoping they make it to the NFL.
Right. And I guess it depends on how you see the Devy side of things, right? Because I think me and you and Chops talked about this before too. Like some people try to win both sides. They want to win the college, they want to win the pro side. Some people, they only care about the pro side, so they kind of treat the college side like a taxi farm. Who cares if I win or lose? I want to stock my players that's going to feed into my NFL team.
Yep.
I don't play that way. Now, I do have some players that on my team that I don't want to cut. They're not horrible, but like a Josiah Stewart, right? Or a Barrett Carter. Maybe they're underperforming, but I don't want to cut them because of the NFL potential, right?
Yep.
That does make it a little hard. I try to win both. I try to make both of my in campus to Canton. I try to win both of them, and it's a balancing act. It really is. It's kind of hard to do.
It is. It's really tough. I mean, I know for me, like, obviously I want to win both sides, but if you tell me, hey, you just pick one, it's going to be college side all day for me. I'd rather win the college side than the NFL side. And so it is a difficult balancing act. And like I said, so typically for me is I'll, especially on the defense, I will avoid like a Bear Alexander or Corey Foreman, right? Because like, I don't want to be sitting on that roster spot for 3 years and then then they'll even get drafted and I feel like, man, I wasted that spot, So I typically will just avoid those guys because I don't want to clog up my roster with those kinds of players.
Right. Now, I'm kind of changing my thought this year with my approach because I'm like you. I don't want to waste that roster spot for 3-4 years before I can even do anything with him, right? So, like I'll go back to Boo Carter. Tennessee first, he's a Vol, right? So I kind of know a lot about him and what's going on. But Tennessee's super thin in the secondary, so there's an easier pathway for him there, right? Because he doesn't have a lot of competition. They need somebody, and then you get the, if you start following all the reports and stuff like that, then you see during the spring that he was in line to maybe be a starter and this, that, and the other. So for me, it was easy to pick him up and use him. Now, I'll give him this 1 year or part of this year. So far I've been watching the games. He's been doing good. Not really fantasy-wise just yet, but the opportunity's there. So I'm kind of willing to hang on to him. But if he starts falling off at some point and other players on the team are passing him up, then I think I'm going to have to, if I don't think it's going to get better next year, then I think I'm going to move on and get somebody that can help me now. And I think with college, that's the difference between college and pros. College is more, you have to win now, so your decisions, you can't be as patient with college roster. You have to be more, like you said, you have to be a little more aggressive. You have to be a little more willing to take chances because of the way the roster, the schedule, and everything set up. Where the NFL, you can kind of put them on taxi squad. You've got more games to kind of figure things out. So it's tricky, but that's just kind of how I look at it. But yeah, I think the days of holding players for a year or two and them not making an impact on your roster, for me, I think are almost gone. It's going to have to really be a Peter Woods. It's going to have to be a Sammy Brown. You draft Sammy Brown, you're probably knowing that he's not playing this year unless it's an absolute blowout, right? And in that case, you're probably not starting him in your fantasy leagues because you just can't. There's no consistency there. But with Carter being gone next year and their depth chart not really good, he's got a really good shot to be their lead linebacker next year next to Woodhouse. So I think you just have to look at everything, and if the path is not clear, I guess is what I'm trying to say, then I think you got to cut bait with them.
Have you watched any Texas State this year? I'm curious. Like Nick Scourton's been pretty freaking quiet.
Texas A&M, you mean?
Yeah. He's got one sack. He got a sack week 1 against Notre Dame, and then had two pressures against McNeese, 3 pressures against Florida. Tackle wise, he ain't doing anything. He's got 1 tackle.
No.
1 solo tackle, 2 assists.
Same with James Pierce. Pierce ain't done nothing this year, but Pierce has only played maybe 25, 30 snaps in 3 games. They've just not needed him. So,
well, Scourton didn't play a lot against McNeese, but he played 55 snaps against Notre Dame. He played 44 snaps against Florida. But yeah,
he's not had the start to the season that we thought he would. Him or the other guy, the other one that transferred to Texas.
Cassius Howell.
Cassius Howell. Yes. Yeah, neither one of them's really had the season that we kind of thought.
Yeah, at least, Howell's at least giving you a couple tackles. But Howell's playing less snaps than Scourton. He had 2 quarterback pressures and 2 tackles against Notre Dame on 25 snaps. Against McNeese, he only played 10 snaps, had 3 tackles, and then against Florida, he played 33 snaps, had 2 pressures, 1 sack, and 3 tackles. So from a production standpoint, he's doing slightly better than Scourton, and he's playing less snaps than Scourton.
Yeah. Now, I know Scourton against Florida, they were paying him a little more attention. I didn't watch the Notre Dame and the McNeese State game, but I did notice that Florida was doing a lot of chipping, a lot of double teaming, putting the tight end on him, chipping with the running back. So they were doing a lot of things to try to scheme him from making an impact. So maybe that's part of it. I think now that we're getting into conference play, you're going to see some of these players start to take off a little bit because they're going to be playing the full complement. Like James Spears, like I said, he's not played a whole lot, but now that I would expect him to play the whole game against Oklahoma. And now that we're in conference play, I would expect those numbers to pick up. So maybe that's it with Scourton.
Abdul Carter's another one.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
He's done next to nothing. Now Penn State's, the games haven't been close. Well, I take that back. The Bowling Green game was close.
Right.
He did have 3 tackles and 2 pressures in that one. But the first week against West Virginia, he only had 1 pressure and no tackles. So he's off to a slow start too.
Yeah. Maybe that's what you chalk it up to this early, because this is week 4 going in. Everybody's played 3 games basically. So now that we're in the conference play and things are really starting to matter per se, not that they didn't matter before, but when you're playing McNeese State, that's those type of games really don't have a huge impact. So maybe now that we're in conference play and things matter, and as far as playoffs and conference championships and stuff, maybe we'll see more out of these guys. But yeah, if Scourton doesn't do something pretty soon, it goes back to our conversation. When do you cut him, right? When do you, if you're trying to win the college side?
Yeah,
that's a tough decision because he's a good player.
Ruben Bain, we talked about him earlier, the outstanding year he had last year. He's played 3 snaps all year. That's it, 3 snaps.
Ooh.
Not good.
Oof,
not good.
That's rough.
I don't know if he's hurt.
No,
maybe he's hurt. I don't know, but he's played 3 snaps all year. Maybe he's hurt. I haven't seen anything that says he's hurt, but I was gonna listen.
I haven't either. That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. I know you got to run here in a minute, so we will wrap it up. Sorry for the short one this week. Follow us on Twitter at Justice_2318. Follow me at Hollywood Titan. You can follow at Devy IDP Grind. Also follow at G5 Hive. Wherever you listen to a podcast, drop us please rate, review, and subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeartRadio. Go over and check out our Discord. Go over and check out the Patreon. As I mentioned a minute ago, I got a top 400 IDP Devy rankings. I'm actually in the middle of working on those for this week. So go check that out. We thank you for following. We'll be back next week at our normal time, Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. Get your questions in, all your trades, whatever. Me and Justice is more than glad to help. And we will be back next week.